Hey everybody, so in this week of Tea with Tash, I've actually got my tea here. I wanted to talk about self-care versus selfishness. So I was asked by one of my really close mom friends this question, in terms of finding out what's too much self-care. Like, is there such thing as too much self-care? And when does it turn into selfishness? So I'm Tasha, by the way. I help busy moms create a calm life that they love by helping them establish self-care, cleanse their environment, and increase productivity. So today, I've always got my notes with me if you haven't met me, so I'm just like, I don't have a prompter or anything fancy, so we're just gonna roll with it. So this video is about self-care versus selfishness and how to determine that. So first, I'm big about definitions because I feel like if we come from this neutral perspective and we define what those words mean, then we can then move on to looking at our life and then determining how we define that for ourselves. So here we go. So selfishness. Person, action, or motive, and this isn't like the dictionary of the world, but person, action, or motive that's lacking consideration and that's very concerned with their own profit or pleasure. And let's define self-care now. So self-care is the practice of taking action to preserve or improve one's own health. So if we look at those like two definitions and you're reading them out loud, they don't really overlap because the intent of selfishness is complete opposite of self-care. So I just wanted to lay that out there because we get to choose our perception of how important self-care is for us and where the line is drawn if people would ever call us selfish. So I wanted to define those two, and we're starting from a neutral point of view now. So 5 ways to define or to defer self-care versus selfishness, okay? So the first is that I want you to decide what kind of self-care works for you. And the reason why this is important is because we tend to get so overwhelmed by a million things. Like I try and think of the past, like in the olden days, how did messages get from one to another that sitting on a mountain, or from one person to another that sitting on a mountain was something that was calming? Now we have podcasts, we have audios, we have fitness classes, we have books that are coming out of like our yin yangs. There's, oh my God, I wish this was live so you could help me out here. There's a bajillion of pieces of information. Like if you can picture my head right now, there's like 20 arrows coming in with different sources that people are telling us, do this, this will make you feel this way. So I don't blame moms for thinking like, how the hell do I focus on self-care? I think you need to decide what works for you. So I have a freebie for that, so just stick till the end. I'll link to it below that can help you determine the biggest mistakes we make for self-care and find the version that's right for you. Here's an example. You've got a friend that's heard or listened to an amazing documentary or a podcast. Let's take that as an example. And you just start talking to them, and all of a sudden you want to throw them advice because you've heard this amazing podcast. And then you say something like, you've got to hear this podcast, this girl, blah, 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 is so amazing. She was talking about XYZ. So then, excuse me, I've got a bit of a sore throat. So then you go home and you start taking action on exactly that thing without knowing if you're an audio learner. Are you a visual learner? Do you have time for podcasts? Is it too overwhelming to even download the app? Like, what method really works for you? I think it's really important to stick to one thing. Like, I mean, you can obviously have more, but we're talking about simplifying things here and reducing overwhelm and staying calm. So I would say stick to one thing. For me, it's mostly podcasts. If someone says, you've got to read this amazing book, I'm like, yeah, awesome, send me the title. Because 95% of the time, they don't send me the title and I don't worry about it. So that is just one tip in terms of defining the self-care that works for you. So the second thing that I would say, the next step, is determining your purpose, your desire, your goal, whatever you want to group that is. And the reason why that's so important, I want you to picture like Price is Right Plinko. Okay, you've got your purpose or your goal for the year set out right at the top. And you've got all these other like things that are jumping up at you throughout the day, from people, from events, from work, from your relationships, from books, from podcasts. And when it comes to you, you need to be able to filter, like be the sieve, is that what it is? Like be the hockey net or whatever, and the filter of that particular thing, person, place, event, or action, and decide, is this directly in line with my purpose or my goal? And sometimes it's a little bit harsh, but I think this is where growth comes in as mothers, is that it might not be. And then you just say thank you, but no thank you. You can choose different words. But that's really how it is. There's no, like, you know, I often get asked, like, what do you do to blah, blah, blah. I don't do everything. I don't. I say no to a lot of things, and this is how. So I'm very clear on my purpose, very clear on my goals, and anything else that comes, even if it's something that I want, I plan it for another year, because we can have the tendency to dabble in all of these different facets of our life, and we lose focus. So that's step 2. Step 3 is going to be communication and frame up. So this step is really important because I often get asked, you know, when you can think of a life or work situation that's going on right now and think like, where did it go wrong? And then ask yourself, wrong. And then ask yourself, did I frame up this person that I was going to email them if I couldn't get a hold of them? Did I frame up this person that they only had 2 appointments with me in this service package? Did I frame up my kids that I was going to do XYZ this weekend? Have I framed up my husband that I'm going to go to yoga on Wednesday? Are you starting to see this pattern? So often, just take a minute to just think of something that's going on right now and take the responsibility and look at what you've done in terms of communicating what's going to happen to that particular person. So that's step 3. Step 4 is going to be you're planning it in. So it's often, you know, we can feel sometimes selfish. Again, I think it's the wrong word, but we can feel like it's inconvenient when we are focusing on something that's for our own self-care if it's not planned. So this is like the key for it's just the key, planning. Not in terms of like raising any anxiety in your life or overwhelm, it's to decrease that. So we want to bring your focus again back to your purpose. You're communicating what that is to your family, letting them know what's going to happen. Then you plan it in. So planning it in, what does that look like on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis? You're putting it in your planner or whatever you prefer to use consistently. And step 5 is in line with step 4. So this is consistent support. So we always say it takes a village. It takes a village of people, of family, of friends, of events, of anything that's around your life that you can use to save yourself some time and some energy. So consistent support is the last step, because once you plan, you need to figure out maybe who's going to take care of your kids during that time. Is it going to be your partner? If you don't have a partner, is it going to be a friend? So often we can feel guilty, and I think that's the blurry word that we focus on when we start to feel maybe selfish. We start to feel guilty for doing something because we don't really know if it's really what we want. That's part of determining your purpose. We haven't really told our family what we're about to do. We haven't really planned it. And then we're asking someone last minute, so we feel bad. So the key is to plan it in, and then having support, whoever that might be or whatever that might be, consistently for you. So that means that that person can also plan their life. They have a clear intent of what is needed from them and why. Who cares? So just going back to self-care and selfishness, who cares if you're going out to do your nails during that time? Because your self-care might be very physical. It might be very emotional, and that means a calm time to be able to get your hair done or do your nails. That's okay. Like, don't listen to all the other arrows that I wish I could like just put on YouTube. I'll figure that out later. That are coming at you. That's just, no, like stay on your path, trust your gut, And the reason why you're going to trust your gut is because you've got purpose laid out or your goal in step 2. So consistent support is super, super key. So in order to get you started, I've got a freebie for the top 10 mistakes that moms make related to self-care. So I'll link to that below. And if you like this video, please subscribe. If this is making sense, just comment yes. And if you're all about like self-care and not feeling selfish at all right now, comment self-care. I'm super pumped. Thank you for having tea with me today, regardless of my sore throat. And I'm really, really looking forward to finding out what your top self-care and purpose was that you determined, and how you're going to plan that into your life. So please share that with me, and I'll see you guys very soon. Bye for now.